I was born in Korea, so I'm Korean American, but I actually lived in Germany for a while. Anybody from Germany? Yeah, thought so. So I grew up in Germany from 4 years old to 7, and then came back to Korea and got educated in Canada and the States. So I'm very multicultural, but just like you guys. Went to middle school in Toronto area and high school in Chicago, and went to college in Illinois, so University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Studied accounting, which I did not really like, but managed it and got my CPA in the States. Worked at KPMG, started my real world experience in Chicago, Illinois. Anybody heard of KPMG? Yeah, it's a big accounting firm. We call it the Big Four. It's one of the Big Four accounting firms. But I started doing audit in KPMG, and then I moved back to Korea because just wanted to get some more experience in Korea since I grew up most of my time in the States. So I came back to Korea, started at KPMG SolBridge, did some M&A stuff, and then wanted to really get into strategy consulting. So I did some consulting work, which I loved. But I don't know if you guys know, but consulting life in Korea is pretty hectic. You basically work at least 12 hours a day, and you pull about 60 to 100 hours a week. So it's just not that great of a life. You basically have no life. So going through all that career change, I decided to do my own business. I started doing a business in F&B, food and beverage. And then I realized that it takes a lot of capital to do F&B because you have to put a lot of money into marketing and branding. So I started People Fund with a friend of mine. I don't know if any of you guys know, but Youngin is one of the startup members, co-founding members at People Fund. So 5 of us started People Fund in 2015. So that's me in a nutshell. Yeah, so I'm kind of glad to see this kind of environment because I've been in a Korean environment, very Korean environment for the past 9 years, and it's really good to see like very diverse community right here. So welcome. I think one of your peers mentioned it, but today I'm gonna focus on not only one thing, but a variety of things. I just wanted to focus more on what you guys wanted to hear rather than me talking about what I want to talk about. So since I founded People Fund, I wanted to talk about a little introduction about People Fund Company, my founding story, and some of the lessons that I learned starting a startup. And then I think most of you guys are probably interested in how to navigate your careers at this point. So just wanted to give you guys some tipsters on that. And also, if we have time, just gonna mention some of the work principles that we have at People Fund. So let's get started. Fintech. How many of you guys know Fintech? Okay, that's what I thought. So Fintech is an acronym for financial technology. It's when you combine finance with technology. Some of the companies that you guys might know is probably in this list. You can't really see the logos, but there are different industries in Fintech areas right now. I think most of you guys have heard about blockchain, which is a very popular industry within Fintech. There's also robo-advisory, payments, Kakao Pay, you guys probably know Kakao Pay. Venmo is one of the payment, and then reinsurance and alternative finance. I'm gonna start right here. If you guys could just quiet down a little bit, because of the surrounding noise and the noise right here, it's hard for me to kind of focus on this. So if you guys don't mind, can you just focus for 25 minutes and then we'll be ready for lunch. So Fintech industry, we have a variety of markets going on, but what we are doing at People Fund is the alternative finance market. Alternative finance market is you have the regular financial market, which involves the bank, the fund managers, the hedge funds that you guys are all aware of. The alternative finance market is something that's alternative. So it's not the regular traditional financial market, but something else. People Fund, I kind of added the logo right in the bottom, but People Fund is in the alternative finance market, and the peer-to-peer lending market in Korea is not small. It's about 3.5 trillion Korean won, which is about 3.2 billion US dollars. It has grown tremendously in the past 5 years, and we're still growing really, really fast. So how many of you guys know about peer-to-peer lending? Probably none. One. Okay, peer-to-peer lending, let me explain. Don't mind the pictures in the bottom, but basically what we do is we get borrowers and lenders. We are a platform company, so the borrowers would get apply for a loan through People Fund, and we connect the lenders / investors with the borrowers. So we have hundreds and hundreds of borrowers, and then we have hundreds of investors. So we connect them in a platform, our platform, and then we kind of do the basic work of a loan. We do the initial screening of the loan application, and then we have our own credit scoring system. So we do our own screening, and then we connect the investors to our platform. Did you guys understand that? Yeah. All good? Okay. We have not only personal loans, but we have different product segments. We have personal loans that I just mentioned. We also have real estate loans, which involves project financing and also mortgages, and also factoring. Factoring is a new product in our company, which is we give out loans through accounts receivable. So I'm not sure if you guys do shopping in Korea, but have you guys heard about Gmarket or like Weemouth, right? So basically the suppliers, when they sell, let's say Nike shoes through those platforms, they don't get their money right away. Even though you guys pay them right away, it's the platform that gets the money. And then what happens is they hold on to the money for 3 or 6 months, which is a really long time. And the suppliers, they need to get moving. They need to sell, they need to invest in marketing, they need to get the factories running. So what we do is we collateralize the accounts receivable, and then we give out the loans that way. And it's becoming a huge market. We were one of the first. We did it with this company called Funda. We were one of the first companies to do this product, and it's growing rapidly because it's such a huge market. So we have these 4 main products in our company, and these are the different type of loans that we lend out through our platform. AUM, asset under management. So how big is People Fund? We just reached 300 billion Korean won in total asset size. So that means we gave out loans about 265 million US dollars, which is pretty big. And it's one of the fastest growing P2P companies in Korea. And right now we're the top 2 player in the market, which is pretty damn good, I think. So that's People Fund. Did I know anything about Fintech, just like you guys? Did I know anything about peer-to-peer lending, P2P? Not really. So in the beginning, when this guy named Joey, who's our CEO, when he reached out to me, he was like, oh, I'm doing this Fintech company. It's going to be a P2P lending. And I'm like, what? I don't know any of this gibberish. I don't know any of this jargon. And he's talking about valuation, stock option, dilution, series ABC. And, I had no clue about anything in startup. So, of course, I did my research and got to know what it is. But here are the 3 main reasons that I did join Joey to do this startup. And I think this is going to be pretty useful if you guys are going to start a new company on your own. And I think these are the 3 reasons why People Fund has grown this much in the past couple of years. The first reason that I joined People Fund was because of the team. Our CEO, Joey, he's a very intelligent, driven, positive thinking guy, and he has tremendous leadership skills. I'm not the CEO. Just to clarify, I'm heading HR in People Fund. Started with marketing at People Fund, but then I switched my role to HR. But the CEO, Joey Kim, he is a guy that has a background in consulting. And also, he worked at SoftBank Ventures as a VC, as a VC. So he screened a lot of deals back in the day. And then he wanted to create his own company. That's how he started People Fund. And he started meeting up a lot of people. including myself and Youngin. And then 5 of us started People Fund in 2015. My other coworkers, including Youngin, they came from a very prominent colleges, and then they had super professional experiences back as a background. That's one of the reasons that I had assurance that I wanted to really start this company with Joey. So when you guys start your company, I have friends that started on their own. So it's a one-man team. She had a really, really hard time because there are gazillion things to do in a startup, and it's really, really difficult to do it on your own. So I highly recommend that you start searching for your soulmates right here in this room, and really look for a friend that can challenge you. I wouldn't say you need a friend that loves you all the time. In a startup, it's a very challenging environment. You'll face many, many, many difficulties. And one of the best things the way I think we did as a team was that we were challenging each other constantly. It gets a little frustrating, it gets a little tiring, but that was one of the things that we did. Every day we would have a meeting and we would just fight. Sometimes we would shout, but then, to get things going and to get a startup launching, you need to do this type of discussion nonstop. This should be your life when you're starting a startup. But having that team that can be your discussion partner, that's critical. So the team was one of the main reasons that I started People Fund with the team. Another thing was market opportunity. I see a lot of Korean startups not doing enough research in the market. For People Fund, we are in the Korean financial market. When you look at the Korean financial market, the debt market is growing tremendously big. Also, because of the rising housing costs and all that, if you do the calculation, an average Korean person would make about $50,000 a year working at, LG, Samsung, or a very steady company. So you would start around $40,000 to $50,000, and your salary doesn't increase that exponentially, unfortunately. But then the housing prices are ridiculously high. So just knowing that fact and doing more research, we already knew that the Korean debt market was growing a lot, and then the personal debt portion was also growing altogether. So there was definitely a growing market. Another thing was there is a clear white space. In Korea, there is no mid-level interest rate market. It's either you go through the famous banks that you guys have seen around the streets. You either go there, get like a 2 or 3% interest rate to get a loan, or you go to private lenders, which charge you about 20%, which is a huge gap, right? So there's no mid-level interest rate market. That's what we were aiming for. So clearly, there's a growing market, and then the clear white space that we could move on to. You don't want to work for a startup that's gonna evaporate in a year, right? You need to make sure that there is a growing market where your company can survive. And also, there has to be a clear white space. You don't want to go into a red ocean. If you go into a red ocean, then you need a lot of capital to begin with, and it's a bloodbath. So a clear white space was something that when I started up a company, that was one of the things that I was looking at when I was doing a research. The third reason I founded People Fund was because of the social impact that I wanted to make. When I worked at KPMG and Deloitte, which is a very, it's a good company to work for, I realized that I was spending a lot of my time figuring things out for other companies, and the problems that they were facing were not really socially effective. It was more about increasing their sales, increasing their brand awareness overseas, yada, yada, yada. So it wasn't really making a social impact in this world. And I wanted to make a business that could really, really change people's daily lives and improve the quality of life. And also, I think it's important that when you guys do look for starting up a company, look for a product that can change the industry. We call it disruptiveness, but really look for something that could change. There's a lot of, one of the things that I'm kind of sad about Korean startup market is a lot of us, we copy things, we benchmark a lot. Korea is known for doing a lot of benchmarking, and we're really good at it. We make things a lot better, but we lack in originality. And I hope you guys can find that originality within your cultures. Having multicultural background, I think that one of the benefits is that you guys can see a lot of things that people don't really get to see. You guys are exposed to different cultures, different society, different economy. So I really want you guys to see how you can change something small. I'm not saying go out and change the world, but through your experiences, there will be something that can be very beneficial to your community. So look for that. Did people copy somebody else? Yes, I'm not gonna lie. We did not copy somebody, but we did benchmark a lot. A company called Lending Club, which is an American company, and they did go on an IPO. We benchmarked a lot on their business model, which is we won't go too much into details, but we did benchmark a lot on Lending Club. So benchmarking, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but since you guys are coming from a very different background, I just hope that maybe if you guys can find an original idea and develop from that, I think it's gonna be very, very useful and also very meaningful as you guys go on to your real world. People friend, 2016, I think we probably made a dot way on the bottom. But in the past few years, we had an annual growth of 800%. That's huge, and we're still growing. We started with 5 people, and now we are reaching to 90 people in our company. So we have grown quite a bit. But as I mentioned, this is the team that actually made everything happen. So team is critical when you're doing your startup business. Let me cover some of the things that I've learned. I told you that team is important, right? Your team members. Really know your team members, like really. Joey, who's our CEO, I'm still close with him, I think. But I thought I knew Joey. I thought I knew Joey really well. I thought I could manage his weaknesses. He has tremendous amount of strengths, but everybody has weaknesses. I have a lot of weaknesses, but I also think I have a lot of strengths. But during the past almost 4 years now, I realized there's different sides in people that you don't know, and you'll face that while working with them. But try to get to know them as much as possible. Really know their strengths and weaknesses, because the weaknesses are gonna outshine their strengths sometimes. But if you are already aware of their weakness, then you know how to deal with the problem. So really know your teammates. I think that's crucial. If you have drama, if you have personal drama in a company, that's the worst thing to have. Because in a startup, you're busy solving problems and getting the business running. You have no time to face personal dramas. But if you have issues with your team, then it's a waste of time. So make sure that you really know your team members. Remember Porter's 5 forces? Did you guys learn this in college? I hope you guys know Porter's 5 forces. It's the basics of business. Know the market. If you do a very initial process of Porter's 5 forces, you will know the overall economy or the industry landscape that the market that you want to enter into. So in college days, I know, I wasn't the brightest student at college, but these things that you learn in school actually matter. So pay attention in school, pay attention to your classes. Porter's 5 forces is one of the tools that you guys can use, but just knowing the market is very important. Social impact. I mentioned this at the end, but have your non-negotiable principles. When you are working, when you're starting something new, you will face a lot of problems, right? But if you have your very strong personal principles, that's what gets your business going. If you have a shaky principle, then your business will shake with you. So having a very strong personal non-negotiable principle is key. For me, it was making a social impact. And of course, I have more detailed goals within having a social impact. But that was one of my non-negotiable personal principles, that when I was working for People Fund, I really wanted this company to make a social impact. And I think we're not quite there yet, but we are focusing on having this impact in the market. There is a book that I would recommend to you guys. There's this book called The Principles by Ray Dalio. He is a hedge fund manager in the United States. Have anybody heard of Ray Dalio, Bridgewater? It's a very famous hedge fund company. Who watched Billions on Netflix? Awesome, at least somebody. So it's a very famous hedge fund manager. He has billions of assets under his company. What he had was hundreds of personal principles that he wanted to not change, right? So that's one of the reasons throughout Lehman's and throughout the financial crisis, the reason why Bridgewater was still standing strong was because of the leadership's principles. So write down your principles, guys. It's very important. Okay, so this is all I have for working at About People Fund, and we are about, it's 12:25, so I'll do 10 more minutes on my career path and working at a startup. But if you guys have any questions about People Fund right now, I'll be happy to answer.
What are you gonna do in 5 years?
What am I gonna do in 5 years? I don't think I'll be at People Fund, to be honest. Many reasons why, but I don't think I'll be at a startup. I think I'll go back into the industry. These are kind of my personal reasons. But yeah, in 5 years, I think I'll be back in a big industry. I'll tell you this, working in a startup is really hard. So it's almost my 4th year working at a startup. It's fucking hard, right? Every day you have challenges. Every day you're solving problems. Every day you have personal dramas. It's a lot of young crowd at our company. It's a lot of young kids. So we're still growing, right? We're not that mature. So you have a lot of dramas. When I say one thing, people perceive it as a different thing, and then it becomes a snowball effect. So it's difficult. That's why I mentioned team. It's critical that you know people's weaknesses. Knowing their strengths, I think it's great, but I think it's critical to know their weaknesses. Industry. So in P2P lending market, we have a lot of companies that have gone bankrupt, that went underwater, that they stole money. If you guys are kind of good with Korean, first thing when you type in P2P in Naver, the things that pop up is fraudulent events, audit, startup that's not doing a good job, blah, blah, blah. A lot of negative media tabloid. So it's a tough industry to be in, and because we want to make the social impact, there are things that we don't want to negotiate, but sometimes it's difficult. It's very difficult to navigate through very regulated industry, especially in finance. But all in all, what I'm saying is startup is hard. My 4 years at People Fund has been the hardest out of my whole career. Working at KPMG and Deloitte, I wouldn't say it's easy, but there is a system, there is rules, there is a way of working, and basically, if you do a good job what your boss tells you to do, then you're set. You're set for about 10 years. People Fund, every day is a challenge. If you mess up one thing, then your company gets shaken by that decision. So it's very difficult. There's no system. You think there's a system, there's no system. When you join People Fund, I don't know if you had internships before. If you work at, like, let's say Facebook, the first day you go to work, you probably have your laptop all set up, and then all this program that you can go into, mentors, that's all set up. When you join People Fund, I give you a laptop, you down your own MS Office, you kind of go through this program called Slack. We use Slack for our communication tool. We don't teach you how to use Slack. You just go in and you just kind of play around with the buttons, and then you figure it out. But that's startup life. You have to face problems all on your own. There's no mentors, there's no system. You have to make that happen. So that's one of the difficult things working at a startup. So, yes, in 5 years, I think I'll be back in the industry. Startup was a very good experience for me, but it's been a very tough one. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Is it possible to use your platform as a money laundering?
Good question. I think you could, but not at People Fund. Are you into money laundering? Yes, it's possible, and I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think maybe some companies may have done that, but People Fund, it's impossible because all the money transactions that you go through us, it goes through a bank. So we don't really manage the money directly. So let's say, what's the famous guy? Help me out. The Colombian guy, El Chapo. Let's say El Chapo wanted to use People Fund as his money laundering service. It's impossible because the money goes through the bank, and the bank have internal audit system of the source of the money, and also we have to report every single investors. And then we just got an audit too. So yeah, through us it's very hard. Yes.
So how much are your average interest rates for your?
Our average interest rate is about 10%, 10 to 12. Depending on your credit score, it changes. So if you have a pretty good credit score, then I think your average rate would be 3 to 5%. I wouldn't say 3, more like 5%. If you have really, really bad credit score, then it goes all the way up to 19, 20. But our average overall interest rate is about 11% for personal loans. For business loans, it's a little different. Business loans, it's a lot higher because we do have investors that need a return. If you give them a 10% or lower return, they will not invest in us. So a lot of our business loans, because of the business situation they're in, we go all the way up to 18, 20% for business loans. Yes. Oh, okay. Wow, that's fast. I wanted to tell you guys more about working at a startup, like doing your career path. Can I have 1 more minute? Okay. Here. So as I mentioned, there's pros and cons in everything. There's pros and cons in working overseas and working in Korea. For me, because I'm Korean American, I can work here or in the States. Every single Korean, they ask me, why aren't you working in the States? There's pros and cons in everything. Big name corporation and startups, there's pros and cons. I would say that if you are really into startup, because I think most of you guys are into startup right now. If you guys are into startup, I would do both. I did both. And I think every single experience matters. Working at a big corporation, there's pros. Startup, there is freedom, you learn a lot, there's new type of welfares, etc. So if you want to work at a startup, I think the best thing to do is intern at a startup. It's really beneficial to have experience in a startup and see how it works, see how a new company works. So try to get an internship at a startup. Every single startup will employ people, employing tremendously a lot. I mean, you guys know it grew from 5 to 90 right now. This is a tip for you guys. When you guys want to work for a startup, do your research. Do your goddamn research. A lot of the kids that apply to People Fund, they don't do their research. They just throw jargons at me saying, oh, I'm interested in Fintech. we're in fintech, and they say, oh, I'm interested in blockchain. And I tell them, we don't use blockchain right now. So why did you apply to People Fund? It drives me crazy when students that apply to People Fund, I'm very, very thankful that you applied. But if you don't know what our company is working for, or our values, or our business model, then why did you apply? But on the other hand, if you do your research and really know the company and what they're looking for and the growth strategy that they have, and if you pitch to them, I think a lot of the times the startup will hire you because what they're looking for is very driven kids with a lot of interest in our company. If one of you guys did your research about People Fund and told me that, hey, I know you're going through a lot, I know your industry is going through a lot of pain points right now, but here are the things that I'm looking for in a startup. And then when you start talking about our company, then I'm already sold, right? And then I want to meet you, I want to talk to you, I want to figure out what type of person you are. And then if you have a right fit, then you're hired. It's simple as that, but do your homework. It's very, very important that you do your homework because I get loads of resumes that's just, I can tell if you're applying to companies with the same resume to 100 other companies. I can tell. So make sure you do your research, personalize your resume, and really do your sales pitch. And I guarantee you, startups, they will hire you because they're always looking for people. So that's my little chat. Okay.